Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's episode, we're working on the 35 Ford truck bed. We've got to shorten it up by 6 inches, as I mentioned in the previous two episodes. We've got some of the parts back for the subrails. They were sandblasted and primed. We're going to have to cut 6 inches out of them to shorten them up. And we've got the back piece now, so kind of want to get the subrails put together, get them to the right size, start working on putting the reinforcing pieces on the truck bed sides. These are reproduction stake beds or stake posts or whatever you want to call it. Looks like we got to tweak them up a little bit, but ultimately we're going to put those on, get things flattened out, straightened out, and getting it looking like a pickup bed, or move it as far as we can. Still want to pick away at some of the things on the camera ladies Roadster, so hopefully we'll get the battery box all finished and painted, get that situated in there, and anything else we can pull off this week. If it snows again, I'm probably going to lose a little bit more time like we did last week, but that's just this time of year, so going to do as much as we can this week, so follow along. So today back in the shop again, basically picking up where I left off at the beginning here. We have the subframe pieces for the 35 pickup bed. What I said I had to do, I had to shorten them up by 6 inches. So I've already started that process. So essentially I chose to take 6 inches out of the front here, in between some of the holes. The first one, I've already cut it and shortened it. I made an overall measurement of the length. That way when I cut this and put it back together again, I knew exactly that I was exactly 6 inches shorter than what I needed to be, than what it was originally, pardon me. Additionally, on this piece, on the driver's side, someone had cut a hole out, I guess, for another gas tank with a different filler neck in a different position or something. Really don't know. They hacked it out probably with oxyacetylene, but anyways, we cleaned it up, gonna weld this in, we'll dress this up. So I'm going to carry on with the second piece. We'll cut that, and then we'll start positioning it over on the frame and putting things back together again. And then the other thing I wanted to finish up from last week's episode was that I wanted to finish up with the battery box for the Camera Ladies Roadster. I went and bought a brand new battery, and then what I wanted to do was position the hold down rods in the right place. Now sometimes what I'll do is I'll take these rods, I'll bend them on the bottom, and I put a hole in the side, so kind of like use a hook method. What I chose to do in this case here was I just welded a couple castle nuts on the side of the box at a 45-degree angle. What I'm most likely going to do is go to the hardware store and just get some 5-inch long, quarter-inch bolts, which will go through there. That'll make that look pretty neat and tidy. But that will keep the battery in place, no problem whatsoever. So what I'll do next with this, I'll just take it apart, clean it up a little bit, put a couple coats of black paint onto it, and then we'll be ready to stick it in the Camera Ladies Roadster. The other thing I did, I picked up another piece of sheet metal that is the right size, because the leftover piece that I had from cutting the sides up was not big enough to do the end here. I needed to get a piece 54 inches long in order to fit this on. So what we'll be doing is we'll be making this piece as well in this episode. So more things to come, and follow along, and we're going to keep these projects going. So here we are next, the second side subrail. I finished cutting and welding and trimming. Now basically it's just kind of fitting everything together on the frame. When these pieces were sandblasted, they were epoxy primed, which I don't know if I would do that again. I think I would probably weld them all together, then epoxy prime them, but nevertheless, we just got to clean off all of the epoxy prime where I'm going to weld, because it's going to smoke me out here. So anyways, we've got everything kind of set up right now with all the rivet holes kind of lined up. We're not going to put rivets back in. The intention here is just to basically weld the holes up and then weld it as a joint. I thought about using some carriage bolts and lock washers and bolts to hold it together, but I think what we'll do is I'm going to weld those holes and make them look like a rivet was in there. The frame's probably not going to flex like it did back in the old days, where you had, rough roads and whatnot. That's why they riveted stuff, because that way there was some more flex to the frame and whatnot. We don't have that today, so I think we're quite safe to weld the rivet holes in place and maybe even tack some of the sheet metal. I think I might even tack the sheet metal like right along here in addition, just to give a little bit more support. So anyways, we're going to crack the welder out. We're going to go around and get all that done. Once I have that done, then I'll start working on the back piece. Jeff York made this up. He made it a rough section. We've still got to cut and trim and put a bunch of holes and stuff into it, but that will be the next piece to go across the back. So let me get the welder out, get this welded together, dressed up nice and pretty, and we'll go to the next step. Now I've got the subrails all welded together here, dressed up some of the welds, because we don't want them, although I want them to look like kind of spot welds and rivets, I don't want them to stick out too much in case when I go to mount the bed sides to the side of the frame, I'm probably going to be spot welding those against the frame. So I'm still going to have to dress off some of that epoxy primer when I go to do that. But that will come later. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this back piece here. We have an original to go off of. That's what Jeff used to make the blank. So right now what I'm doing is I am trying to transfer the features to the blank. The first of which was cutting these sections out here, because the stake pockets, ultimately the stake pockets are supposed to fit over this like this. They would go over there and there would be rivets going through the stake pockets. So that's what it won't fit right now because it's going to be tweaked in order to fit. So I think, anyways, we're going to make it fit. We'll just bend them out so that they will fit, and we're going to try and duplicate and make it look as much like an original as possible. So right now what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm just going to continue to transfer the features, cut the clearances. There's 2 holes here on either side that I'll do next. Those 2 holes line up with these 2 holes on either side. So they're kind of critical to do next. So what I'll do, drill those. We're going to take that and position it over there. The other thing I need to do, the original has a whole bunch of drain holes on the bottom. We're going to replicate those across the back of this as well. Just the owner specifically asked for it, so we're going to do it here. Today, back in the garage again, going to work on this back piece that goes across the back of the subframe over there. And as I said just previously, needed to drill these 2 holes here, which match up with those one. That's pretty simple and straightforward. The other thing, the owner wanted those drain holes across the bottom. He even suggested just drilling them out, but I said, well, it's going to be an easy way to cut these out and take about the same amount of time. So essentially I laid them out off of the original, drew like the square lines as you can see here. I took the mini grinder, I started the holes all along the sides here till it broke through. Then I took the air recip saw there and then finished off the holes until the pieces on the floor fell out, as you can see. And then I took this little belt sander, mini belt sander, which I haven't used a whole lot of, but I see a lot of people use them. That's an El Cheapo Harbor Freight Chinese made one. That's not a high-end tool, but it serves the purpose. If I find myself using more of it, I'm going to upgrade to a better quality one. But for what we're doing here, as far as deburring these holes out and taking all of the sharp edges off for the bottom, just it's quick and dirty, go back and forth and clean the holes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to finish off this last hole. We'll cut it out with a recip saw and sand the edges. And then what I think I'm going to tackle is there's an indentation along this one lip here for the hinges. So I'm going to make up a little bracket because basically a section of this needs to be flattened. So I'll make up a little metal jig. I'll clamp it on here, and then we'll basically beat this flat. I'll show you the jig, and I'll show you myself, show it to you while I'm doing it. Hopefully, as you can see from the time lapse, there are the indentations that we put into the back piece for where the hinges are going to go. All I did is, after I hammered them out, just took the mini grinder with the flapper wheel onto it and then dressed it up a little bit. And then because when I pounded this in, it pushed the metal out, I had to trim across the top. It squeezed some more metal out this way. So all three places are done. Now for the time being, all I've done is put some 1/4-20 nuts and bolts here to hold this in place. It ultimately is going to get welded there, but for the moment I am not sure what the next step is. Now there is a specific piece of wood that goes in here and actually locates on that mounting hole, so I am going to have to make those. So what I'm debating right now is, I think what I'm going to do is start taking the side panels, trimming those to fit so that I could basically dummy them along the side, and then kind of go from there. We do have to make the back piece yet, but there's a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's some trimming that we have to do from the sides that we made. There's a notch that we have to put in here. There's a couple holes we have to drill there. And then I have to figure out where it's going to be spot welded along the side of the subrail to the subrail. So I think that's what I'll do next. I'm going to grab those sides and start cutting some holes into them. There's a hole for the gas tank on one side that has to be drilled. Hopefully I've got a hole saw that big. We'll get that drilled into it. These holes here along there, I don't think were stock. I think someone had drilled those in and put some angle iron or something. So we're not going to assume that those are holes that we need. And then of course these holes here will be fender holes. They can be put in later when we have the fenders, or when they go up to, I think they're going to go up to Jeff York's. He'll put the fenders on it. And then I'll have to determine whether or not we have to make this reveal here to clear the bottom of the frame. If I don't have to knock it in here, I won't. But what we'll do right now, like I said, I'm going to drill a few holes. We're going to dummy them in place and then just have a look, see what we have to do next. So there's one of the bed sides just held in place. I drilled the holes down there below the clamp, and I put 2 1/4-inch carriage bolts in to kind of dummy it in place. And I used a pair of vice grips to hold her in place. Now, one thing, this looks to be as though it's a passenger car frame, and that's a passenger car body mount. So right now it's sitting out a little high. So what I think I'm going to have to do, I'm going to check with the owner. I'm going to have to cut those off. And the same thing with the rear friction shock. Since we're not going to use those on the future pickup, I got to cut those out so that we can get this to fit okay. But otherwise, it seems to, besides a little bit of the twist in the side, which we talked about, earlier, it fits actually quite nicely. It looks as though we're going to be spot welding to the side of the subrail frames, so we'll have to figure out where those holes are. I'll punch those holes out and ultimately we'll be spot welding it on. But right now it's looking good, fitting okay. Besides figuring out that I got to cut those shock mounts off and the body mounts off so that we can set the subframe on, we're in pretty good shape. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on the wood, figure out what wood we have to do for the back here for the body mounts, for the bed mounts that is, and keep on working on the pickup bed. So I know that looks the same as it did a couple seconds ago, but I cut off the body mount that was in the rear for a passenger car vehicle, and I took out the friction shocks, and right now it is actually fitting much better. There's not as much distortion in it, so a lot of that is starting to come out as we clamp it along the side of the subrails. I did this side as well. So what I'm going to probably do next, I'm going to go research the size of the wood, see if we can't get some of those wood pieces made for the back, because I think there's blocks that go here, and then potentially a large wooden strip that goes inside there for reinforcing as well. We will cut the other bed side so it fits this side, and then potentially make the back also so we can kind of dummy it together. Oh, and I got to go find a 2 3/4 inch hole saw in order to cut out the hole here, right there for the gas tank. We're back in the wood shop tonight. Needed to make these blocks. You can see them here. Basically got the dimensions off of the ham or the jalopy journal. You can buy these. I think they're $90 for 2 US, I think. So anyways, I got the dimensions. I've got lots of bits and pieces of wood here and the woodworking equipment. If you followed me before, you'll know that I used to make custom furniture for a long time, so I kept my wood shop. I still can make stuff as I need it. So what I did, just got a couple pieces, I think 1 or 2 of these are maple and 2 of them are ash. I made an extra setup because the owner of the 35 pickup bed, 35 pickup, he's got a bunch of 35 and 36s. He's going to be working over the, putting together over the next few years. We've got the wood that goes underneath the cab. This is the original set of 35 wood that we did, and this is the one for the stretched version. So did that in a previous episode. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take 2 of these out to the shop. Really not sure how they fit in there because I don't have any pictures of it. We're going to figure it out. I made these exactly to the dimensions that they were supposed to be, off of somebody's posting, but I'll have to trust that for now. We'll go fit them and see where they are, and I'll show you how it goes. Well, not knowing how these blocks fit in the back of the pickup bed, that made me not make them to the right size, I guess. I did go off of the ham. I went and got the dimensions, double checked them again. I made the blocks to the right size, but as far as I can tell, these blocks fit right here. This is the rear mount that we need to align up with. It appears as though the bolts from the hinge go straight through this block. Now the width of the inside of this is actually 1 7/8 inches. So I'm not sure how the 2 3/8 would fit through there. I've tried the block around a couple different ways that doesn't fit, but what it looks like is this block fits down through the hole and then sits on the frame, and there's a bolt going through it. And then with bolts coming through here, through the hinge. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go back in the shop, and we're going to have to trim these down to the 1 7/8 inches thick, and then see how that fits. But we're not too far off. I mean, if we look down through the holes, we can see how they line perfectly up. So it's it's gonna make sense. See, right there. And then I guess what there's another piece of wood that goes through here that stiffens the back up that the center hinge would go through. At least that's what I'm told anyways. So we will carry on with that. And I can't help but think there will be also another piece of wood here to stiffen this up as well. I'm gonna have to figure all this out. So we're back in the wood shop tonight. After making the blocks last night, I decided to do this, maybe engineer it backwards. Now it's more than possible that the blocks that we made, and we got the information off the ham, maybe they were for a different year. So these two blocks that are left over, I'm gonna keep those because it might be for something else. Might be our mistake. Anyways, that's the way it goes. Ultimately, what I did was that I messed around with the other two. I basically cut them up and planed them and put them through the joiner and everything else until they would fit in the steel piece. And then I went and grabbed the steel piece and I brought it in the house here in the shop. And I said, well, I'm going to make some from scratch. So what I'm going to do, what I've done actually, is I've made two pieces like those that would fit in the center. And then I mentioned before, we need actually a filler piece. There actually was a piece of wood that went down the center of this, both on the ends. This is where the stake pockets will actually clamp on here. If we didn't have anything in between here, and we put the rivets or the through bolts through for the stake pockets to hold them in place, it would actually crush this. So there actually needs to be some wood in it. And when we pulled it apart, there was some wood that came out of it. And then likewise across the center, there needs to be a solid piece of wood because there's another tailgate hinge bracket that will go through here. So again, if we didn't have something in between to sandwich it, to tighten it up, it actually would just crush the sheet metal. So right now what I've done, I'm going to take this back out to the subframe out in the shop. I will actually put it on, and then I'm going to mark the holes from the bottom. I'm going to go up through the mount, mark the holes, and then we'll drill the holes through here. I may trim some of this off, kind of like what they did with those, but we'll see how it fits on the mount. If I need to make a little reveal on the bottom like this on these pieces, I'll do it. But right now I'm going to leave them as they are. We'll take it out, we'll put it on, see how it fits, and we'll adjust along the way. Anyways, we're getting this done. We 90% there so far. So there's the rear cross member on the subrails. I actually welded it in place. I was happy with it. The wood's all made up. I drilled the holes. I think you can see, should be able to see, yeah, there you go. You can see straight through. So we got a direct line of sight to the mounts on both of them. I did notch it a little bit over here just for looks because the originals were notched. Like I said, I strongly suspect that the blocks that I made up might be for another year, maybe 38, 39, 40, don't really know. It's kind of hard to find information on it. But anyways, at this point in time, we do have the wood made up for the rear mounts. We've got the filler wood put in place right now. We've got the right thickness on these. They need to be 2 inches outside diameter. I checked the stake pocket pieces. Now the stake pocket pieces are distorted a little bit, but that's not uncommon. We'll have to straighten those out. But the width here is 2 inches, and I've already checked it. And it actually fits over the metal and the wood just like we wanted to. Drilled the gas tank filler neck hole there. It was 2 3/4 inches. Of course, I only had a 2.5 inch hole saw, so we had to use the rotary file to open it back up. Anyways, we're inching along on this. I would really like to be further along than what I am for this week. I think next up, I'm going to take the other side over there. We're going to notch it, drill the holes into it, and put it along the side. And then once we have that done, I'll move on hopefully to doing the back piece and bead rolling that. So anyways, a little roundabout way to getting to it, but I think we've got the wood and the back cross member all sorted out. So there's the second side of the box put on. It's just dummied on for now, but what I did the same as the last time. Essentially, there's There's 2 rivets here that would normally go into the subframe. What we plan to do is use those as welding points. So for now, I'm using those kind of like a locator or a dowel or whatever. So we've got a 1/4 inch bolt in there, hold it in place, and I've just got some F clamps along here because I want to make sure, although I'm quite confident that this side is going to fit really well and clear everything, you just want to put them on for the time being. What I'm going to do also, I'll trace out the edge of the subrail, and I'll use that later to drill holes, because ultimately the box side is going to be spot welded or plug welded to the side of the subframe. We'll do the same thing on the other side, but right now I wanted these on, just mocked on, so that when I can start making the back of the box, I'll be able to also mock that on and make sure it fits well. But everything is going well so far. I may try and straighten out some of these stake pockets to see if I could slide those on, just for an extra level kind of check or whatever, but coming together. So like I said at the beginning of the video, the one thing we were going to try and do is do at least something on the Camera Ladies Roadster every week. And as you can see, I think I've finally got the battery box and a battery installed in the back of the 32 Ford Roadster. We put it behind the passenger seat. It has a hold down bracket. Those are just 1/4 studs there with nuts onto them, with a flat bar holding it across. And then the other thing I did was I was able to fish the battery cable up through the floor there. I've got a rubber grommet onto it, a rubber grommet in the hole, so that we've got the added protection of the rubber on that, plus the thick insulation on the, I think it's 1/0, it might be 2/0 copper strand line there. I still have to go get some battery ends or battery cable ends and a crimping tool. And then of course we need to run a ground from the battery to one of those frame mounts with some dielectric grease onto it to make sure that we've got a really good ground contact, but we'll do that later. But at least there we've got it, and it's the battery box, you can see it there, it's screwed to the supports, so it's permanently in place right now. So got one thing done on the Camera Ladies Roadster this week. Well, that's it for another week of Coldstream Rod Shop. In this week's video, we made a lot of progress on the 35 pickup bed. We've got the sides dummied on. We sorted out the rear cross member and figuring out what to do with the wood. I've searched as hard as I could to find other videos or references on what really to make there. So this is what I think we're supposed to do. Hopefully it'll help somebody else out there too. But we're going to carry on working on the 35 pickup bed next week. I was hoping that we could get the back section bead rolled, but just didn't have enough time. But we're still going to work on it. And then we got something done on the Camera Ladies Roadster. We got the battery box finally in. Again, next week we'll pick something else to work on the Camera Ladies Roadster to move that project along. But anyways, that's it for this week. Big milestone this week. We reached 5,000 subscribers, which blows my mind. I never thought that many people would want to watch me work on this stuff. But anyways, to each and every one of you, a big thank you. We really appreciate it. But anyways, come on back next week, see what we're up to. We'll be working on these 3 projects you see in the shop right now. So please like, share, tag, and subscribe. Come on back next week, and everybody have a great weekend. Take care.